Literary criticism. An introduction. Literary criticism is the study, evaluation, and interpretation of literature. Plato's criticism on poetry. Plato was of the view that poetry should only exist for the benefit of community. He discussed poetry in his book The Republic in 360 BC. He wrote that children who read poetry should not learn about wars and fights, rather, they should learn about loving each other. Moreover, Plato was of the opinion that good qualities cannot be acquired through poetry or drama. His idea was to ban all the poets except the most high-minded ones. He said that poetry should be banned because poets are incapable of telling the truth. Aristotle's Poetics. Aristotle argued that poetry is a medium of learning and enjoyment. Aristotle's work Poetics, written in 350 BC, is a very influential work of literary criticism in Western literature. Aristotle was of the opinion that poetry should appeal to the emotions of a person. Aristotle defines tragedy through its six component parts: plot, character, diction, thought, spectacle, and song. Horace gave his advice on how to write poetry in Ars Poetica. In his satires, he wrote about poetry's place in society. He argued that poetry should not become a trade. Longinus wrote a very popular work on sublimity during the 1st century AD. He was also worried about the fate of poetry. He advised poets to aim for greatness of thought, which is both a cause and effect of sublime. Longinus also laid stress on strong and inspired emotions for sublimity. He argued that the sublime is the highest form of literature. Sir Philip Sidney, who was an Elizabethan poet, wrote the famous work An Apology for Poetry, or The Defense of Poesy. He wrote this work in response to Stephen Gosson's work, The School of Abuse, in which Gosson had criticized poetry. An Apology for Poetry was first published in 1595 after Sidney's death. In this work, Sidney defends poetry by emphasizing on the power of poetry to make men virtuous. He refers to ancient poets to prove his point. Sidney wrote that heroic poetry was of the highest kind. He also made a point that English language was superior to French, Italian, and Spanish. Joseph Edison wrote in his essays on the pleasures of the imagination, published in 1712, that criticism was becoming more associated with consumption. He compared literary appreciation with the appreciation of other consumer goods. Alexander Pope wrote in his an essay on criticism. In this verse essay, Pope argues that bad criticism has very harmful effect on literature. He also implied that imitation of ancient poets like Virgil, Homer, Aristotle, Horace, and Longinus is the great standard for taste. John Ryden wrote Essay of Dramatic Poesy. Ryden was England's first poet laureate. In this essay, he attempted to justify drama as a legitimate form of poetry. It is a treatise in the form of dialogues between four speakers: Eugenius, Critus, Lycidius, and Neander. The four men discuss three topics: the relative merit of classical drama versus modern drama, whether French drama is better than English drama, and third, whether plays in rhyme are an improvement upon blank verse drama. The observation was that French writers observe Aristotle more carefully than the English writers. French writers depict only one action, whereas the English writers burden their plays with underplots. The tendency of English playwrights to mix tragedy and comedy also flouted Aristotle. Alexander Pope wrote Preface to Shakespeare in 1725. Pope praised Shakespeare's genius in this preface, but he also accused him for many faults, like confusion of characters and persons, wrong application of speeches, etc. Joseph Edison also wrote essays on Milton's Paradise Lost in 1712. Edison finds beauty and respect for the rules of classical writing in Paradise Lost. Thank you.